One, and we are recording with the one and only Dale, motherfucking Comstock, American Badass, Volume 9, and my faggot ass wearing a golden hoodie that I look like a jackass in. I went shooting yesterday, and I was missing targets left and right. The one video that was taken, I actually hit all the targets, and I double tapped at the end. And the video cut off, but I turned around and I said, "You see me conjure up that Comstock?" And my friend was like, "Fuck yeah!" And I was like, "That's how Dale does it." I was like, two in the fucking head, and then I realized that's probably what all my liberal friends think I do every day is shoot guns and talk about double tapping people in the head. But enough of that. Enough of my gay ass stories of me shooting a gun. And we have the American Badass himself, Dale's book, American Badass, which will be in the description, sticking in the top comment. It's a fantastic book. It's hilarious, but don't take my word for it. You can hear Dale right now as we go into American Badass Volume 9. There's 8 volumes before this. They're all fantastic. People have become addicted to them. They're the Sunday special. And people are clearly not tuning into this episode to listen to my dumbass talk, so I'm just going to shut up now. Dale, take it away.
All right, brother. Yeah, thanks for having me on here. For everybody that's a first-time listener, just a little background. If you want to know more about my background, go to the first episode, right? And so I'll talk a little bit about my background. You know who I am. Right now, I'm calling you from Bali, Indonesia. I have a business here. I have a home here. And I also have a home in Panama City Beach, Florida, which I will be back to here very soon in the next couple of weeks. So I come here kind of back and forth every few months. Nonetheless, as we were talking about earlier, Tom, and just for everybody out there listening, here in Indonesia and Bali, not Indonesia, but Bali itself, they have a holiday here called Nyepi. And so Nyepi is basically, it's a daily of Nyepi. Yeah. My wife's over here telling me how to spell it. Just know it's called Nyepi.
Okay.
Nyepi. Anyways, it's a day of silence. And essentially what that means is for starting on Saturday at midnight, Saturday morning until Monday morning at 6:00, it's total silence. You have no power, no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no phones. You can't leave your house. You can't come outside. Basically you're theoretically locked yourself inside in the dark so that you can meditate and reflect on your life in the future and the past. They actually have what's called Pachalam, which is like a civil police that literally walks the streets. They wear these black and white sarongs and headgear, and they all have walkie-talkies, and basically they're foot patrols, and they're looking for anybody violating the restrictions, the curfew or whatever, and they will literally roll you up and throw you in jail. So they don't take it too lightly. So why am I sitting here with the lights on the internet? Because I'm actually in a hotel, and some of the hotels are exempt as long as after a certain time there's no lights on the outside. Everybody's inside. We have Wi-Fi. That's why I'm calling you, and we have lighting. So my friend invited me to come here for the weekend with his wife and other friends, and it's a good way to relax, and we can't work, so we can just hang out at a resort and talk to you guys. So here we are.
I would pay to see a foot patrol with walkie-talkies try to arrest you.
They could. They got numbers, man. They don't walk by like Wednesdays and Tuesdays. They walk in like New York gangs, man.
I would pay money to watch you smoke 100 of them.
Yeah, it would. I can tell you, it won't work out good for me as an expat in this part of the world.
No.
They don't allow us to have a mistake. And in fact, their first course of action is to kick you out of the country, man. It's and I don't want to get all political and stuff, but it's a stark contrast to America. Americans, we just let everybody do whatever they want, come on over, take what you want, don't pay taxes, all this crap that's going on. And here in Indonesia, not just Indonesia, but the Philippines, all of Asia, man, they don't tolerate you. You come over here and you overstay your visa, they will find you and they will lock you up. and then they'll throw
Hell
you out when they're done with you. Um, the penalties and fines are very high, and they actively seek out anybody that's here that's not supposed to be here, or doing something they're not supposed to be doing, like making a little bit of money on the side just to get by, for example. Um, Totally different way of life here, totally different way of looking at things. And I can tell you, they're not tolerant of anybody coming from any foreigner coming to this country and not playing by the rules, any of the rules. They just won't tolerate it, man. So
yeah.
so I have
That's
to be very
awesome.
careful, like all the other expats here, to live by the rules, do the right thing, and stay out of trouble. So punching a guy in the face is out of the question, unless you're ready to go home. So yeah, it's probably not going to work out for you. So what I want to cover today, in today's chapter, I'm going to cover two chapters. The first one I'm going to talk about is a child's hell for a father's profit. The child's hell for a father's profit. And so this was my period in Afghanistan where I won't be specific for OPSEC reasons, but I was on the Afghan-Pakistani border towards the north. In fact, the camp that I was at, we won't call it a base, it was a camp, was one of the northernmost camps in that, in Afghanistan, Pakistan border. And it was way up there. It was high in the mountains. In fact, I remember that our camp was about roughly around 7,000 feet elevation. We had OPs at around 9,000 foot elevation. But the whole view, man, of the valley and the area that we were in was just super picturesque. The only way I can describe it is like a scene out of the movie The Lord of the Rings. It's really beautiful. And some places were really, really nice on foot patrols, just especially in the springtime with the green, lush valleys and the poppy fields and the little running streams and the little villages everywhere. It was really cool and very serene. And sadly, Afghanistan could be a great tourist attraction, man, for people that like trekking and hiking, camping, and all those types of things. It would be a great country for that. But man, seriously, we couldn't even roll out the front gate without an armed platoon with us. But it was a dangerous place to be. But it was beautiful. And so this particular camp that I was at, and the way we were positioned geographically, we came under attack quite a bit, particularly mortar attack. And usually the mortar attacks came around 0430 every morning. Why 0430 in the morning? Because that's when the sun comes up over there, because they don't observe daylight savings time. So 0430, sun was coming up. Also, that's when everybody went to prayer call, right? So they're on their feet, going to go pray, and the lights are coming on. It was also a pretty good time to launch some mortars on the way to, the local madrasa at your friendly neighborhood, forward operating base. So you could pretty much expect on a pretty regular basis a mortar attack. And this one particular morning was no different. I remember I kept my radio by my bed. Sure enough, the chatter comes over. We got incoming, and you can already hear the mortar rounds make an impact. And so at this particular encampment that we had, I was responsible for the mortar section. So I had a bunch of Afghans that were trained, to call for fire and also, run, mortar systems, run their guns. And we had 120s, we had 120s, we had 80s, and we had 60s. So we were using a combination of American mortar tubes and Russian mortar tubes and American and some Soviet ammunition and other countries' ammunitions, as long as it would fit in there. And so we used a combination of those weapon systems. Now, so I remember on this particular morning, I get the call. I run out to the mortar pit. My guys are already out there. They're already setting everything up. They got the whiz wheel out. They're plotting. We already know where the POO site is. What POO means, point of origin, right? Basically, where's the mortars coming from? And we knew where it was coming from because we had an OP above us about 2,000 feet. And then on the back side of that OP on the other side, there was a village down in the valley. And basically that's where all the attacks were emanating from. So the other problem we had was the OPs were coming under attack on a regular basis as well, because they were right on top between the village and our camp, and they were right on the top of the mountain. So they were actually an easy target. Sometimes they were targeted and the mortars would miss and go right over the backside of the mountain down and land on top of us. They also brought snipers up. They would come up and shoot, some of our soldiers in the OP. And we usually kept about a platoon of guys up there in this particular area. So they would pick them off. They would lob mortars at them. They would shoot them with sniper rifles, shoot RPGs at them. Our guys were constantly under pressure above us. And so after having been there for a while, in fact, I ran this particular mortar section for roughly 18 months. And on and off, I would come in for a couple months. I would leave for a couple months, and I'd come back. But over the course of 18 months, that was my primary responsibility for base defense, if you will. So I run out. I remember I run out. We start sending the 120s. I love the 120s. Those are some big mortar rounds. It looks like a porpoise, a dolphin flying through the air. That's how big they are. And yeah, they're big, man. And it's really cool to watch it because you can see them fly. And so we, every morning it was the same scenario, incoming, and we would send them out, right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then, the sniper shot started, and then they had a couple of good hits on us with the mortar rounds. And I just kind of got a little fed up and decided, you know what, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop this right now. So one day I took a patrol with me, and we went up to the OP. I briefed the commander at the OP what I wanted to do. And essentially what I was going to do is put booby traps, tripwire, all around the areas where I thought these guys were sneaking in with RPGs and sniper rifles and forward observers and attacking the OP and us. And basically I was just going to now deny them that terrain so they couldn't sneak up on them anymore. And so we continued our march, climbed up just a little bit higher, and I told the patrol to stay back because I didn't want them in the area where I was putting the booby traps in, because last thing you want is be laying booby traps in and then you have one of your soldiers step on one behind you and it blows everybody up, right? This was a one-man operation. So I sat them down. I went out and I reconned the area and realized, okay, this is where they're coming in. I did about 4 different areas that they were using to sneak up onto this OP. And the area they were coming up from was literally almost a sheer cliff going straight down for about, I would say about an 8,000, 9,000 foot drop. It was very steep, very picturesque. It was kind of spooky, man. If you fell off the cliff, you're going to go for a free fall jump. And, but they were working their way up. And one thing about Afghans, man, they're very, they're like goats, man. They're very good in steep terrain with flip-flops on, which is amazing, right? How easily and agilely they move through mountainous terrain. And so for them to get up that hill was no problem, man. They could do that all day long, right? Shoot up there, and plus they're not carrying anything but a weapon or an RPG. So what I did was, my plan was this. What I did is I took hand grenades, and I would put the hand grenades in the original canisters the shipping tubes that they would come in. What I would do is I would tie the shipping tube off behind a tree, under a rock, on a tree limb. And then what I would do is I would pull the pin on the hand grenade, keeping the spoon depressed, and wrap it up with, actually I didn't wrap it up anything. I just wrapped the head up with a little bit of wire, and I slid the grenade back inside of its tube, the shipping tube, right? So then I would string the wire across the path where the guy, most likely was going to walk through. So if he walks through, he trips the wire, he pulls the wire, which would pull the hand grenade out of the tube, and then the spoon would pop, and then boom, it would go off. And sometimes I would set up with 2. I put one on one side and the other hand grenade on the other side. So I had 2 hand grenades with one tripwire in between them, right? So if you walk through that, and if you walk too fast, you pull both hand grenades out, they're probably going to wrap around your ankle. You're not going to get away from them, and boom, you're gone, right? So I have strung out all over the place, different levels, different heights, different configurations. And I remembered where I put them, right up. Okay, I kind of wrote it down. So I, if I had to come back up, I knew where to go so I don't trip my own tripwire. So anyways, that was done. And we went back down the hill. Gave everybody orders, do not go walking around up there ever. Okay, because of this reason. So everybody understood that. I believe it was the next day or 2 days later, I flew back to the States. I had to rotate out, and I was going to be gone for, I don't know, 30 to 45 days, taking a little bit of a break. And then I came back. And I remember when I came back, I spoke to my counterpart, right, my cohort, who, by the way, is no longer with us. He was also a retired Green Beret, and one of the smartest, funniest guys I've ever met. Just a joy to be around. I mean, he was just a great guy, man. Um, and unfortunately, he committed suicide back at Bragg when he returned. Took himself out, man, which is a sad thing. A lot of guys have some issues, man, and he had some. We didn't realize how bad it was, but it was bad enough, obviously. So, but when I came back, he was there, and I say, man, I said, what's going on? Give me the in brief, sit rep. And he did. He told me, what's the latest situation, what's been going on in the camp since I've been gone, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, well, hey, what about my booby traps? How did that work out? Did I get anybody? And I remember he's like, oh yeah, that, well, he goes, well, you got a goat walk through one of them. And you got a 13-year-old kid. What do you mean you got a 13-year-old kid? He goes, yeah. So what happened was, because everybody knew that, the OP was always getting attacked. It was getting rocketed and bombed, and there was a lot of gunfire. The Afghans like to collect spent ordnance, brass, and things like that, right? They like to salvage the
Yeah,
metals
scrap
to make
metal.
some money. And so on this particular day, this father sent one of his kids up there, his 13-year-old boy up there, go collect brass, bring it back. So he did. He went up there, and what did he do? He walked through one of my booby traps and killed him. And now, who would have seen that coming, right? Normally, there's nobody up there at that altitude except the bad guys and the good guys. Little we expect some dude walking around on that terrain, particularly that terrain. Never saw that coming. Well, they found the kid's body, which was really unusual. They found his body in a dump down by our camp, garbage dump. For whatever reason, somebody laid his body there, and we haven't been able to figure that out yet. But we got the story what happened. Not only did that happen, but the father then sent the second boy up there, the younger one, to go get more after he already lost the first one. And the second one didn't get killed, but he did get injured, right? And so we had to put the word out to all the Afghans, you are not ever to come up this mountain, anywhere near this mountain, just not going to have it. So I was left with a dilemma. And the dilemma was, man, do I leave them up there, the IEDs, the booby traps, or do, I recover them? And so, it was a moral issue for me, right? On many levels. And on one hand, I felt like I was trying to save and protect our soldiers up there who also had families and kids, and us, in our camp. And then on the other hand, I'm like, man, would there have been a better way? Just something I could have done different, and I tried to rationalize it, and finally what I just decided was, what, let's just go take those booby traps down, and be done with it. So I took the patrol, we went back up there, and I remember, now it's been a little while since I've been up there, and I was like, okay, let me remember where the hell these things are, because everything looked a little different. All the trees looked different. In fact, there were trees were knocked down, they're broken up. And I said, what, did something happen up here? And they said, yeah, actually what happened was a 155 battery, Americans, several kilometers away, were firing 155 out in front of the FOB, or the observation post, into that area where I had laid those booby traps. And the reason why is because the OP was under siege, so they were calling for fire support, and 155s came in and just leveled the place. And so as I walk into this area, it's a lightly wooded area, a lot of scrub oak type stuff, and there were some trees there, maybe 20 feet tall. Nothing looked the same because the limbs were broken, trees were broken, just from the beating they took from the 155. And now I wasn't sure where were the booby traps. And then when I did find some that had not been triggered yet, they were literally like hanging by a hairnail. Just they were ready to just they just needed one. They needed a bird to fart, and and it would have blew up. Man, it was that. It was just that precarious, right? I'm like, holy smokes! And I'm tiptoeing around there, praying to God I don't slip and fall and slide through one of my booby traps, going down the hill, or knock one out of a tree on my head, or anything. So as I was able to find them one by one, since I had already pulled the pins on them, I decided to just go ahead and get rid of them. So I was pulling the hand grenades out and just throwing them down the side of the mountain, right over the other edge towards the enemy, and let it blow up down there. Finally, I cleared the area, and then we went back and I called it a day. So I had that was a moment where you really gotta it it has a profound impact on you for many reasons, right? So as a father, all I could think about were my own kids. And what if that happened to my son? And then I thought, man, this is war, and war, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that you just can't control, you can't anticipate, that just happen, and you do the best you can. You do the best you can for your fellow soldiers. In essence, you're really doing the best you can, not only for your soldiers but their families and your families. There's a bigger picture here, and so when that happened, I thought about, I was like, man, this kid was 13 years old, and he's just trying to find some money for his family, right, to feed them, and it cost him his life. And do I blame myself for it? Not really so much as I blame Taliban for it. Had they not come up there and did that shit, I wouldn't have had to go out and put the booby traps out there, right? So they, as far as I'm concerned, the responsibility lays at their feet. Because if I didn't do it, we'd have lost more soldiers up there. Kids would have lost their fathers, and wives would have lost their husbands. So it was a kind of one of those moral things I had to really mull over for a while, and really wasn't sure of the answer. And I figured, since I'm really not sure what's the right answer, let me just take him down. And if I come up with the right answer and realize that it was the right thing to do to leave him up, then I'll go put him back up.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I took him down. I never put him back up. But it was one of those things that it's one of those things that happen in war and combat, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, people, even innocent people, get killed in them.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's like what I mean, if you hadn't have done that, then you might be sitting here telling a story about how your buddy died because you got soft and decided not to put out booby traps. And then, does your buddy die and some kid back here grows up without a dad? I mean, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like there's no answer that everyone wins on. So at the end of the day, you kind of just have to be like, why am I here? What is my job? You did your job, and like it's a shitty thing that like that kid died. But if you didn't do it, I mean, if we didn't nuke Hiroshima, what do we lose 1 million soldiers, or do we nuke 300,000 men, women, and children? It's like, I mean, it's war, it's hell. No one walks home and goes, "There's the good answer." It's it's war.
yeah, I was actually telling a couple tonight, here at the resort. Actually, it's the first time I met them. They were Canadians, and they were asking me some questions, and they were talking about, you know, there's a rumor of war out there, and everybody believes that, at least the people I'm starting to talk to, that the Chinese are coming, and they think we're on the verge of another war, and it's going to be with the Chinese. Now, I've been saying this for a while. I fully believe that day is coming.
Hmm.
And why is that coming? Because the COVID, man, provided really good top cover for the Chinese, right? To go out and start building these artificial islands, all these incursions that they're doing, even into India. There's a lot of other things going on that I won't talk about on the open source that I'm aware of, but um, there's just even here in Indonesia, they're talking about, and it's on the news, man. They're starting to find Chinese drone submarines, right? That are, whatever, uh, failing, or running up on the beaches here in Indonesia. So we know the drone submarines are out here doing, the whatever you call it, geo navigation and geo, charts or, mapping, things like that. So I don't even know if you call it geo mapping because it's
Mhm,
underwater.
mhm.
Whatever it is, they're doing it under the water, right? So what are they looking for? Probably like submarine routes and things like that. But they're actively, doing this kind of stuff. Is that new? No, but between that and the buildup of the islands, a lot of the saber rattling, and then the other thing that's going on that people probably not aware of it is the Chinese are actively dredging the ocean bottom around Taiwan, right? They're literally sending, hundreds of thousands of barges there all year round, and all they're doing is dredging up all the sand from the ocean floor, and they're carrying it off to build their new islands somewhere else,
South
right? But
China
what it's
Sea, yeah.
doing, it's destroying the coral reefs of Taiwan, which affects what fishing. That's obviously one of the Taiwan staples is fishing, and so essentially, what the Chinese are doing is trying to cut off cut their food chain in half or cut it off altogether. So these are things that from an intelligence perspective, and I do have a background in intelligence. These are in what do we call intel indicators, and and when you put them all together, they start to paint a picture of something more ominous. And so, the question is, oh, wow, why would they come to, for example, why would the Chinese come to Indonesia? Well, for the same reason they would go to Australia, because they want to control the eastern block of the world. Not only that, all the shipping lanes and control all the resources, and the shiny things that are here.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's a real possibility, especially right now when I feel America is flat on his ass with what happened with COVID. The basically we've taken focus off of a potential war, and we put a lot of focus on this war against a virus, right? This invisible enemy, which is retarded. But nonetheless, you know, everything has kind of come slow down. I even saw an article maybe 3 days ago that came out, and I can't remember the source of it, but essentially what it asserted was that even the U.S. government is afraid that they're not prepared to take on the Chinese, especially in any type of a maritime battle, which is going to be more than just a maritime battle, an air battle. It's going to be a ground war. And I can see World War II, World War II 10X happening here
Oh,
in this part of the world, right? So, I believe it's going to happen. I think a lot of people are starting to believe that's going to happen,
mhm.
and but a lot of people don't understand what the consequences are. And so we had this conversation tonight about that. I was like, well, we should be okay, right? Everybody should be okay. Well, I mean, what Chinese are not going to do nothing to us, right? They're just going to come here and do what? So, well, they're going to come here and do all kinds of things. Like, for example, they're going to install a shadow government or a complete new government, not only in Jakarta, but every province, including Bali. They're going to go down to the governor's office, go, you're out, we're in. And that's how these things start. And they go, well, what up? They're not going to kill us people. I go, no, because you're useful idiots. They want to keep you all alive because they need you to do things like, keep the
Labor.
economy running, keep food moving and water moving and gas moving. I said, but it's not going to be, Disney World either. There's a process where, this thing, Nazi Germany, neighbor against neighbor, everybody's ratting each other out, everybody's trying to stay alive, and they'll do what they got to do. I said, so this is a slippery slope. And I always tell people, the only reason the Australians aren't speaking Japanese today is because in World War II, the Battle of Midway, had we not luckily, intercepted the Chinese or the Japanese at that point at Midway and stopped them, this whole part of the world would probably look a lot different. So
Mhm.
here we are again. Chinese are in the same area, and they have the opportunity to do it again, and do it better. So, anyways, I kind of went off a little bit
No,
tangent there.
no, no, not at all. It's that's a what but I don't think what people understand, and not that I understand. Again, I'm a 30-year-old with a biology degree. But man, where we are now is we haven't had a world war since August 9th, 1945. We've had a lot of conflicts, Korea, Vietnam, Grenada,
I would
Desert
argue,
Storm.
I would argue we are in a world war. It's just that the battlefield looks different and the weapons
Hasn't
are
gone
different,
kinetic. Well,
right?
yeah, sure, cyber attacks, bio warfare, economic warfare, drug warfare. It's absolutely what's going on. But what I was getting at though is we've had things like Vietnam or Korea where like sure we send over a force from hell, but unlike that there hasn't been total war since August 9th, 1945. Total war is when you don't hold any punches. Well, now all it's going to take is China's going to overwhelm us in one theater or we're going to overwhelm China. They're not going to want to lose. So they're going to pull out like a 5 kiloton tactical nuke. The second a tactical nuke goes off, we start using tactical nukes. It's only a matter of minutes, if not hours, if not minutes, to where they go. They're using tactical, send in the big thermonuclears from orbit. Bam, 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 bam. In 12 hours, we're back in 50,000 BC.
Yeah, no,
That's where it's going to go.
yeah, you're right. And so, for example, the questions that were posed tonight from my friends, which are very smart people, they were like, "Well, the Americans are going to come here and they'll stop it, right? I mean, they're going to be right here, no problem, you know." And they couldn't understand how these things escalate and how they're already escalating insidiously, right? That's why I said it's already begun.
Mm-hmm.
Because you haven't heard a gunshot yet doesn't mean it hasn't already started. And when you do start hearing the gunshots, it's way too
Too
late.
late. Yeah.
We're way down that road at that point, right? So again, this is just my world view, but I can see it starting with a naval battle, air battle, and eventually it's going to be a ground war. Where it's going to be a ground war, most likely in this region between the Philippines and Malaysia and Singapore and Indonesia.
In India.
Man, Indonesia alone, Indonesia alone has over 17,000, upwards to 25,000 islands in the archipelago. Think about that for a minute. That's a lot of terrain. Granted, now some of these islands are maybe like 3 feet by 3 feet across, but they're still an island, right? And so there's a lot of terrain here. This is all subtropical terrain. This is not going to be another fight in Afghanistan or Iraq. This is going to be jungle warfare. And not only is it going to be jungle warfare, but it's going to be jungle warfare and guerrilla warfare. The days of conventional warfare where two armies face off and they charge, and then when the dust settles, somebody wins, are over, man. Today it's going to be Iraq, Afghanistan, 10x with IEDs, and all the unconventional stuff. And we're not going to be able to go in and say we might be able to start this war as a conventional war, but it's going to end as an unconventional war. And the thing that's going to make the difference, the discriminator at the end, is going to be a man with a gun on the battlefield every time. It's always going to come to that. And when does that day come? May never come, or it may come in, like you said, we're going to go back to 50,000, BC, and we're going to be standing not with a gun but with a club,
Mm-hmm.
and our bare feet. Well, we might not even have any animals left to skin and wear.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's gonna be a.
yeah,
There's a. I'll send it to you as well, Dale. You might actually like it. But there's a BBC video that it's obviously fake, but someone put it together a couple years ago, and it's what would a modern conflict look like, and it starts with like breaking news, like Russian warship has incurred into whatever waters, and it starts with posturing, and then you have all these like these conferences from the White House and from in London and all the prime ministers around the world, and then it starts with like we're scrambling bombers, and you see how it's within about 4 hours. It starts with like Russian incursion to like like missile destroyers firing at each other. To it very quickly goes to finally they launch like a tactical nuke at Beale Air Force Base. So we nuke Moscow, and it goes from tactical to larger to multiple independent reentry vehicle thermonuclear, and eventually the show ends because you're watching a news thing the whole time, and it shuts off with, "This is the emergency broadcast system. Your city has been targeted with a thermonuclear warhead. Please stack water and food inside a shelter. Put blankets over and then it just it just ends, and that's how. But it shows it would be like 4 to 6 hours from the first shot to it's game over. But
And,
on the positive note is we did stay in a Cold War with Russia or Soviet Union for what 40 what first nuke they built was Joe 1 was 1949. Cold War ended what 91.
yeah.
We did do 42 years without doing that. So that's maybe the upside. I don't know.
Well, you got to. So there's a lot of things to think about that for a minute. I hope you're right, but we're not fighting the same enemy, right? So we got to look at. There's cultural aspects of this thing. It's different belief systems and different priorities. Um, and I don't want to get all into this whole Chinese thing, but you know, we might not get lucky twice.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think anybody wants to destroy themselves in their race, but when you don't have nothing left to lose, hope whatever, right? So there is no winner. There will never be a winner in nuclear weapons in a nuclear war. Everybody's going to lose, man. You either lose now or you lose later, but eventually you're going to lose, man. It's going to be devastating. And I would like to think that men are a little bit more compassionate, more reasonable and sensible than that they wouldn't take it to that level. But then again, I've seen men do some really
Yeah.
heinous,
Yeah.
evil things to each other, man. And it's like, there is no limit to our madness.
Yeah.
So,
I
um,
I think the limit is mutual assured destruction, and that it's not hoping that the other side is compassion. It's that them realizing it's suicide. It's what Reagan said. The communists will stop at nothing for power, but there's nothing that they would do there's no cost that they think, there's nothing they would do where they can justify the cost of losing Moscow.
yeah,
Like,
I just don't care.
yeah.
Um, well, anyways, yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway,
it's
an interesting night here as well, having these conversations.
like,
But I've had quite a few of them with lots of different people, and that seems to be a consensus. Which is even more amazing is, you know, these are complete strangers I'm talking to that have come out, and they're all like, they're actually scared of where we are today, especially with the new administration. Um, Nobody had anything positive to say about it, which was really amazing. Everybody that I've ever come across so far, even on the left, is in disbelief of what's going on, and they believe there's a lot more, something much more ominous at play here, and
mhm.
that's the scary part. And nobody knows what it is and how it's going to work out. But all right, so moving on, man. So the next one I want to talk about is the siege in Barja Matal. So, so what happened on this particular event? Um, the location I was at, again, I was way north, the same, in fact, um, the same base I described in the earlier chapter, way up there. And there were there was actually there was three platoons or three companies. I'm sorry, three companies in three different what they called COPs, right, which were basically combat outposts, and they were strategically spread out up on the northern part of Afghanistan, running west to east, and essentially they were put there to in the middle of Indian country to disrupt it. Okay, to manage, the MSRs, the main supply routes, and all the activities up there. Well, if you could just imagine, so these camps were sitting in very mountainous terrain that had a lot of forest, more than was used to seeing in Afghanistan. It's actually quite warm up there, kind of humid, and at night I almost felt like I was in the jungles of Panama, which was really kind of interesting, but it wasn't. And so what happened was there were a couple of incidents. First incident that happened was there was a cop, or not cop, yeah, cop was what we call it, right? Combat outpost came under siege, heavy siege, and I believe they lost 9 American soldiers. they almost basically what they did is they ended up calling close air support on themselves because the enemy, the Taliban, were within the wire itself. It was a really bad firefight. I think it's the most casualties we took at one time in the entire time we were fighting in Afghanistan in this type of a combat operation. So when that happened, after that happened, the decision was made to pull out these other two, the remaining two cops. Now, we got a call one day saying, hey, we would like for you guys to come up and bring your Afghans and pull security for us so that we can pack our stuff and lift it out there. Now, these cops were, this particular cop we were going to go to was, if I had to describe it, just imagine the bottom of a valley. And the compound itself was probably 150 by 150 meters square. Very small, it had HESCOs around it, and they had a small helipad in the middle that was probably about, I don't know, 50, maybe 20 meters by 20 meters. Very small, enough to support one helicopter, and that was it. And so the problem was these guys were constantly in a tick. Every day they were troops in contact. They were getting fired at from from the high ground. So much so that these guys could never even leave the wire and go out and run combat patrols. They'd never left the wire because they were constantly inside the wire shooting outward, right? So it was a problem for them. Getting helicopters to come in to resupply them, deliver food, and even to get them out of there was problematic. And so, but they had to leave. And they lived in some pretty austere conditions, man. This was probably the most austere I've seen in Afghanistan. It was something like you might see in Vietnam, man. These guys had little makeshift hooches out of plywood and ponchos and camouflage nets. They didn't have Wi-Fi. They had nothing out there, man. They didn't have television, nothing. I mean, and they were there for a year. And I'm like, holy hell, living in field conditions like that for a year. It was pretty rough. They had their outposts up there. What I did like was they had their, what do you call them? Remote fired machine guns. They had a few of those positioned around there, which was pretty cool to see. But it was Fort Apache. It was Fort Apache. They couldn't get out. They couldn't do anything. And they needed our help to pull security outside the wire so they could start packing their suitcases, packing whatever they can grab, putting them in helicopters and get out. Now, this was going to take a couple of days for them to do that. It wasn't like, oh, we just need a couple of hours to throw all our stuff in the trunk of the car. No, they had a lot of stuff to do. And some stuff was going to get left behind and get destroyed in place. Like, they had a couple of Humvees. Some of the other stuff that's just too big to carry out. So the mission was going to be, all right, we're going to fly in with a platoon of our guys, Afghans. We're going to land in the middle of the night under darkness. We're going to link up with the company commander. We're going to get the op order. And then basically what we're going to do is leave the wire, and we were going to patrol the area and just go out hunting for bad guys and run them off, hopefully, if we didn't kill them. While we were doing that, they were going to bring in other helicopters, and they were going to start loading them up, with gear and everything they need to get out of there, right? So this was going to go on for about 3 days. So anyways, that was the plan. That night we land around, it was about 10 p.m., pitch black. We had a CH-47. We sit down, get out, get our troops organized, and have them do what we call the rucksack flop, right? Where basically they just sit on the rucksacks and they wait. I went up and I got the briefing from the captain, along with my other two cohorts that were with me, two other Americans. And so we got a lay of the land. What's going on? What's the enemy situation? Okay, what's the friendly situation? Got it. All right. And once we understood the plan, we decided, okay, it's time to execute. So we probably left the wire around, 1 a.m. And the first mission we were going to do was go up the road a ways, about 3 kilometers. There was a school up there, madrasa. And it was believed that the Taliban were using that madrasa to stage out of to come down and conduct attacks. So we figured, okay, well, they don't know we're here. So we're just going to go up there and then sneak up on them in the madrasa and wipe them out. So that was the plan. If they're not there, we're going to continue to march further north, about another 2-3 kilometers. There's a village up there. And then we would just go in there and, work it out. So we leave the wire, we start walking. It's pitch black, and probably about 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the walk, we're actually walking up a road, but it's really dark. But we're walking up a road about 20, 30 minutes away. All of a sudden, all hell breaks loose at the camp behind us, our camp. And what happened was another CH-47 was coming into land, and as it was starting to land, there was a bad guy, a Taliban, outside the wire with an RPG, and he launched it around through the bottom of the helicopter. And he took out one of the crew chiefs in the helicopter. Of course, they crash landed into the compound. It did land on the HLZ, but it was a controlled crash is what it was. So now we got a CH-47 that's, tits up, sitting on the only HLZ that we have, and it is down. And now what are we gonna do? So it didn't stop there. So that erupted into a big firefight, right? So now, and we're watching tracers coming from all the high ground down into the compound tracers coming out, all hell broke loose. And so we're now standing and going, okay, now what do we do? Did we go back? And then we thought, well, if we go back, we're probably gonna make contact with our own guys in the wire, and it's gonna be, it's gonna be a three-way ambush is what it's gonna turn into, right? So we decided that we'll probably just make matters worse if we try to go back and try to basically reinforce the compound. And we were better off staying on the outside, so we're not walking around the perimeter in the woods and the hills, and bumping into these guys that will have the jump on us, right? So we said, okay, we came here, we got a mission. We've made it to the madrasa, nobody's there. Let's push on to the next village up the road. So we headed up the rest of the village. The firefight's still going on behind us. We figured that they can sort it out while we go take care of some other stuff. So we get up to this one village, and we're crossing a bridge, and then we get into it. And you always know when it's a village of bad guys, or when they're there, because everybody, it gets real quiet. They all go inside their homes. They close the doors and the windows. They turn out the lights, and it just gets eerily quiet. And so they're there. And we got intel reporting that a bunch of guys squirted out on the back end of the town. Right? When we say squirters, we're talking bad guys. We're booking it up, getting out of Dodge. So so nothing happened, right? So they got away. We didn't have a contact out there. We brought it back in. Got back into the camp early morning, assessed all the damage, and then realized, okay, we got a problem with this helicopter sitting here that we can't get out. So the next plan was, we're going to continue to go out and do our job while they sort out this issue with the helicopter and trying to get everybody out. So we go out again. The next plan is we're going to go this time to I believe it was to the southwest. And if I remember right, there was another village about 4 kilometers away that we also, intel said this is where bad guys are coming out of as well. And so we knew that they had to travel a certain line on the terrain to get to the camp. They're basically going to have to traverse some ridge lines and, and come around the side of a mountain to the high ground to come down and do their damage. So what we did was we went out, and basically we went up to set up an ambush. And now the terrain was pretty tricky to walk in because it was steep. It was actually kind of wet. It was pitch black, and we're doing this under night vision goggles. And the trail that we were working on, I remember, was probably 18 inches wide max. It was a goat trail, and it was muddy and slippery.
Christ.
Yeah. And we're on the high ground traversing this thing, right? With night vision goggles on, it's wooded, and it's very precarious. And so we're walking along, and then we're up there pretty good and pretty high up. And, it's a little nerve wracking because if you slip, you're probably going to fall about 200 meters at least into a riverbed full of rocks. So a few minutes later, I hear this noise, and then basically I had an Afghan interpreter behind me. His name, we call him HD. HD was for Harley Davidson because he loved Harley Davidson motorcycles, right? Even though he didn't have one, they don't have them in Afghanistan. That was his fantasy. I want a Harley Davidson one day. So he was HD, and he was a good dude. And so he was my interpreter. He was behind me, and he slipped and fell over the cliff. and I heard him going down the side. And I, oh shit. So I turned around and I ran over to the cliff and I'm looking down and I could see him laying down there. And and all I remember seeing was, with my night vision goggles on, I saw all this black stuff coming out of his mouth, right, and his nose. And actually, the black stuff was blood. But at night, with night vision goggles on, everything looks like green, different shades of green, and this was black. So that told me, okay, that's blood, lots of it. And all I heard him say was, "Mr. Dale, I've fallen, Mr. Dale." I go, yeah, no shit. So, and I said, all right. I said, all right. I said, relax, just chill out for a second. We're gonna get you up out of there, right? And he got up, and he's dusting himself off, and he's a little wobbly. And so I think we lowered a couple of like sling ropes down, and we managed to finally get him up. And I look at him, and his tooth, his bottom teeth went through the bottom of his lip, right, and they were coming out the other side. And he busted himself up pretty good, blood all over his nose and shit, and he's kind of like a little shook up. And then we had another medic with us. He was actually a SEAL. So I bring him back, and he takes a quick look at him with a red filter flashlight. It's like, yeah, shit, okay, well, you're not gonna die, but you're you don't look real good tonight either. So, but you'll be okay. So we fixed him up, patched him up, and then and I said, HD, man, I said, gotta be careful, bro. And he's like, well, yes, Mr. Dill, but tonight was the first night I ever walked with night vision goggles on. So I go, what? And said, yeah, that's the first night I ever walked with night vision goggles on, right? And I didn't know that. I said, so you're telling me tonight the first time you ever wore NVGs, and we're going on a combat op, and we're walking on the edge of a ravine. Yeah, yes, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Dale.
Dude, man, that's kind of information that's good to know before we go out, because you get hurt, and then now we got a casual problem with a CASEVAC problem, right? How do we get to evacuate a casualty out of here, especially on the side of a mountain like this? We're going to either have to carry you out, because we're not going to be able to get a helicopter in, and just imagine carrying his ass out on the same little slick goat trail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is one of those lessons. It wasn't a lesson learned for me, it was a lesson learned for him, but it was just a reminder that, all it takes is one stupid mistake, man. Overlooking something like a guy not trained in wearing night vision goggles could have really ended the whole mission, right? Could have been disastrous for it. And who knows how that could have, it had a domino effect. It could have, other things could have happened as a result of that, right? So actually something did happen because of a result of that. So now we're like, all right, I lay him down on the side of the trail there, prop him up. We're licking his wounds and stuff, and just tell him to take a breather for a minute. And then I go up and I'm coordinating with another guy, another American. And while everybody was sitting on the trail waiting for us to provide medical attention to this guy, they were just kind of sitting there. And one of the guys noticed under his night vision goggles across from us, about maybe 200 meters across from us, on the opposing ridge line on the other mountain, he saw a light, looked like a campfire. And the closer he looked, the longer we looked at it and started inspecting. And it was kind of difficult because there's trees, right? So we're like looking through trees and stuff too, trying to see these guys. But what it turned out to be 12 Taliban sitting around a campfire with their AK-47s. And basically what they were doing is using that spot right there is for their ORP, is what we call objective rallying point, meaning from there, they're getting they're getting grooved up. They're getting their weapons ready. They're going to drink their chai or whatever the hell they're going to do before they go around the corner and start fighting with the Americans. So this was a staging point for them. And they just happened to be sitting there burning the fire, and chilling out. Were they going to attack that night? I don't know if they were or not, but they were there. And it was obvious that that's what they were using as their ORP. So we're like, shit, we don't even have to march to the village to kill them. They're right here in front of us, right across the street. and so what we decided to do is we got on the radio and we called, basically called for close air support, emergency ECAS, emergency close air support. And it turns out that there was actually an F-15 in the area, one F-15 in the area. And flying around, he was flying patrol. I don't know what he was doing, but he was in the AO. He answered our call. He goes, yeah, I'm in the AO. I got, I have weapons on board and got nothing else to do. what you need, boss? So we said, well, here's what we got, right? We actually had used the lasers and everything we had, the rangefinders, and pointed out where these guys were. He locked in on them with his systems in the aircraft, which was really amazing because we never once heard the airplane. He was so far up and so far out, you can't
Jesus.
hear him. But with his technology on board, right? His night vision capability, everything, he could actually see the Taliban. He's the guy that reported to us. He goes, "This is what I see." He goes, "I see 12
Holy shit.
Taliban guns, barbecuing, right?" And so, and like awesome, right? He goes, "What do you want me to do?" And we're like, "Well, we want you to take them out." So what we did is we lased it, and he dropped the JDAM on him, right? So I remember when he said, basically, bombs away, 45 seconds. He was 45 seconds out, man. And we never heard the aircraft, but we kept the laser on them, right? Because we were guiding this
Yeah.
1,000-pounder, and we're all sitting there watching our nods and stuff, and then boom, that thing hit. I mean, dead center. I mean, right into the campfire.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was that accurate, and all you see is little pieces and parts of people and stuff flying through the air right that night. It's like, whoa, man! Cool shit. And he recorded all of that on his platform as well.
Yeah.
And he actually sent us the video the next day, from his view, and it was pretty gnarly, man. It was really cool to see that.
That's
Um,
that's
yeah,
so insane.
right?
45 seconds. Jesus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that happened a lot of times. That's usually how it works, man.
Yeah.
I called in I didn't call in. We called an airstrike in Iraq one time, 6 F-15s, and same thing. They were 45 seconds out. We never heard the birds ever, and man, they dropped those bombs and it just came raining down. It's like you never heard the aircraft. That's how far out they were.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
yeah, it's pretty cool to know that we had that capability. So, anyways, well, now mission accomplished. We got 12, bagged them, and we went home and I went back to the compound. And then I remember I was tired as hell, man. And we're sleeping on the floor. It's just bad, just shitty conditions there. But wasn't there for, it wasn't a resort, and we weren't there for a vacation. We were there to do a job. So, what they ended up doing, so the next day, they flew in. Now I didn't know this capability existed. So I believe this was a TF-160th aircraft as well, CH-47. And the Army has pilots, and they're told these pilots, their job is to go in and fly damaged aircraft, right? So they actually brought in a CH-47 pilot. They lowered him, basically lowered him down into the camp, stable rig. And then his job was to get in that CH-47, push buttons, pull levers, stand on the gas, and try to make this thing fly away safely. And I remember when he did it, right? We're sitting there, and while that was happening, they had fast movers come in, fighter jets, and they were just flying low and fast, man, through the valleys just to keep the Taliban down. The OPs were engaging. There's a lot of noise, man, being made so that this guy could fly the helicopter out. And man, I swear, it was almost like he jumped in. He did his inspection. He jumped in the seat, and without any hesitation, just started turning dials and got this thing flying. I mean, as fast as he could start it and get in the air is what he did, man. He didn't waste no time. And we were all just kind of standing going, okay, is it going to fly or is it going to crash? And he managed to fly it out of there. He managed to get that thing limping out of there by himself, and took it away and cleared the HLZ for us. So then what happens is another group of 12 Taliban in daylight, probably from the same ORP that we blew up the night before, come around for some revenge, right? Some payback. And they run dab smack into an OP position that was sitting on the ridge line. And they wiped their ass out, man. Freaking young privates with a bunch of machine guns just had a heyday and took out 12 more just like that. So it was a good night and a good day, man. We took out at least 24 that we know of, just in that little bit of time, and got everybody else loaded up on the birds and called it a day. Close the door on the camp, and we left, and mission accomplished. So that was an interesting mission. Many, around, just for many reasons, man, alone, just the whole, when I look back at that, it was one of the more memorable times because the, the terrain was so different. The conditions were so different. The conditions that the soldiers were operating in were so different. The threat was so high and so constant. I mean, it's like every day, man, these guys were like fish in a bowl, man, just getting hammered down there, right? And for a year, this was like, I'm not gonna say it was case on. It wasn't case on, but
Mhm.
it was a mini case on, man. It's like wow, And how do you guys even get any sleep here? It was nuts. Um, but we got it done and got them out, and we felt good about what we did, and we went back and went home. Um, so yeah, that was another one of my ops up there, and I felt like it was a success. We got the boys out. Did the Taliban win? No, not really. They lost at least 24 dudes. Yeah, we had to leave the area, but um, it was tough terrain to fight in, and I wonder about that sometimes too. So tonight we also, again, my friends and people that we met tonight, we're talking about women in the military. Again, I know this is one of those controversial things, you know, and look, it's not about bashing women or nothing like that. It's just about being realistic, And I think
Mhm.
about times like that, you know, those conditions, man, is that something that, we would want to put a woman into, and could a woman endure that for a year? I mean, it was like, listen, you got to go take a piss. You piss in a PVC pipe tube out in the open where everybody gets to watch it. That's just how it is, man. There's no, everybody gets their own little quarters, and no,
Mhm.
man, it's just everybody racking out in one little spot, sleeping butt to nut, um, you know, that's how it is, and I wonder, man, w- w- you know, if we have women in those kind of situations, how is that gonna bear out, and what kind of trouble is that gonna cause? What kind of
Mhm.
problems are gonna cause? Because one of the things I was really impressed with these guys is because they had been there so long, in this area by themselves, fighting these bad guys. You could tell they were like family, man. They were like brothers, and they had to be. They lived
Mhm.
with each other for a year under some high stress, austere, shitty conditions, shitty chow, you know, sucking it up. They don't have internet, they didn't have none of that crap. They got letters from home, whenever it would come in. Um, and so that was pretty raw for me. And I personally like it, you know. I don't know why, but to me that just appeals to me,
Mhm.
so to speak, to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I would have enjoyed that. Yeah, it would have sucked, but I think I would have enjoyed it. Um,
Well, it's
and
real.
I really appreciated just the fact that I got to go there for that short amount of time and go out and patrol in that area, and do something in support of those guys and get them out of there, and go out there and take it to the bad guys. That was fun. That was a blast.
Well, it makes sense that you like it because it's real. It's right. It's like in the South, like going to college in the South, and you pledge up a fraternity, and you're a pledge for 3 months, and it's just they just abuse you. They just use you for you got to go on. You got to drive them around when they're drunk. Got to go get them girls and everything. But they always say it's the best time you never want to have again, and it's because it
Yeah,
sucks. But man, if I'm not still friends with all those guys, if I don't still talk to them almost every day, 12 years later, it's because it's like when everything kind of just seems, when there's no struggle, you can just go get food from the refrigerator. There's no one trying to kill you. Man, sometimes struggle, even if artificial in my case, there is like a beauty to it. You bond together and you have this common goal to fight. And I can only imagine that's dialed up 1,000-fold when it is real and you're in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban.
yeah, and probably because of that, when you do lose your guy or guys,
Yeah.
like that one camp lost 8, 9 guys total. I think a minimum of 8 and then another one later. But, you know, when you lose that many guys that close, all of a sudden it's like, hey, where's first squad net? Oh yeah, they're gone. Freaking forever.
Yeah.
That has a pretty, that's a pretty good blow, man.
Yeah.
And that I've been there too. I know what that's like. It sucks, um, but I'll say this, man. I was really impressed with the U.S. Army at that moment, and the soldiers in it, their spirit was really good. Their morale was still good. It was a suck fest, but nonetheless, they made me proud, and but they don't always make me proud. But these did bring me proud. And I say they don't always make me proud because later on, I had to experience something that I did not like. Um, Literally, where I may have actually mentioned this before,
Mhm.
where some Americans were basically had been hit in an MRAP, RPG'd, took serious casualties, were out in the open, and another platoon of infantry guys were literally sitting on their ass with their equipment off under the shade and wouldn't go out to help them because it was too hot. And those were their words. It's too hot. And I look back at that. That was kind of my turning point in Afghanistan, where I realized we're not going to win, not like this. And if this goes on any further, we're really not going to win, because the guys that are coming in now, except for the older guys, the senior guys, but the newer generation, they're moving in and moving up. I'm not sure they have the same mindset.
Mhm.
Not saying all of them. Don't get me wrong, but that particular day, I couldn't imagine ever where my platoon, my infantry platoon, or Delta Force or Special Forces team would be sitting down in the shade with our shit off, going, "Fuck, I'd like to go help those guys out there, but it's a little hot, while they're out there bleeding out." I don't know. In fact, the captain was called out by my cohort, and he goes, "What the fuck? Why are you doing it?" And his answer was, "I can't get them to go. They won't listen to me." Yeah, okay, you're the captain. You don't have magical powers, but he was hamstrung. But he had no authority. They didn't give it to him, and so because of that, I remember our guys, my Afghans, had to go out there and pull these guys back, literally pulled them back, okay, and rendered it first aid. It was insane. It's insane, right? So that's why I'm a little concerned about the future. Guy was asking me again tonight, this conversation I had. He's like, well, he goes, surely, the Americans are better, and they'll win, blah, 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 blah. And I go, I don't know, man. There was a time that was true. I said, but the world has changed, man. The West has changed. We have, as societies in the West, we have emasculated our men,
Mhm.
right? No longer is being a man a good thing. It's toxic. Okay, that's the word I like to use. Toxic masculinity. We want to effeminate. We want effeminate males, right? Androgynous males, because we're all equal, right? We're all equal. So we can, So it doesn't matter if you're a he or a her. You're a it now, or whatever the hell
Yes.
they want to call you. And so we're all equal, but it's not true. And so we've taken this. We've adopted this social construct that. Um, that is really it's really counterproductive all the way around, but particularly for war fighting, because our army is designed to do one thing: fight and win wars. Okay, but it's become besides becoming a social, a political construct, was a political correctness, social construct type architecture now. Um, it's also becoming a repository for, yeah, we got volunteers, but these are men that, that just don't seem to have the same grit anymore, because they've been our society has watered them down. You can probably take it all the way back to Dr. Spock,
Mhm.
don't spank your kids, don't do this, and now it's like, you know, we have done well. Basically, well, here's what's happening. The East is now becoming the West.
Mhm.
What we were doing 30, 40, 50 years ago, hand to hand combat and just being rough and tough. We've turned that into we're all equal. Let's be sensitive. Let's be kind. Let's sing kumbaya. Let's send them a memo before we attack that bunker and see if they want to just volunteer to give up. You know, Whereas on the East, it's different, right? They're training. They're sending their 10-year boys out there with AK-47s, learn how to kill you.
Mhm.
The whole mindset is shifting. It's a paradigm shift. Even here, I was reading some articles about the Chinese, right? So the Chinese government wants to start programs where they start masculinizing their young men, because they feel like, as in the West, their boys are becoming more effeminate, right? The skinny jeans, you know, all this stuff, this weird stuff. The Chinese recognize it also in their society, and like, no, we're gonna stop this, and we're gonna start creating these camps and these schools where we make boys into men, gladiators, right? Spartans, and so there is that mindset is here, right? They want to do that. In fact, they're actually experimenting now, from what I understand from all the reading, is they're looking at hormone replacement to create these super soldiers,
Yeah.
right? Make them stronger, faster, you know, more endurance, you know, and so there's already an interest in that on this side, but we've seen it already in the Middle East, you know, Africa. 10-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids with AK-47s out there slinging lead, and they don't care. You know, they are training their young boys to be warriors, to win. We're training our young boys to be girls,
Yeah.
and just kind of like, you know, everybody will get a trophy in this one, right? That's how we're going to play. So everybody gets a trophy. We're all, you know, equal. So that's kind of, you know, that's how I see it. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off out there, and blah,
Who gives
blah,
a
blah,
shit?
blah, blah.
Who
But man,
gives
let me
a
tell you
shit?
something. Unless you've been there, you know, you probably just need to just chill and listen, because I've seen it, man. I have seen it. You know, tonight, this earlier this morning, we went down to eat breakfast. I got to say this because this was like the topic of conversation over breakfast, and it's kind of been lingering around all day long. But so this resort that I'm at, a lot of Balinese here, you know, and other Indonesians, and there's a lot of you know, expats here, particularly Canadians and Europeans and Russians and so forth. Um, so I'm standing in the chow line, right, the buffet for breakfast, and it's pretty crowded. And there's 4 teenage boys standing in front of me. They're all white kids except for one. I don't know what he is, maybe Indian. And they're all around. Actually, they're all 16 years old, and they're over there talking, blah 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 blah. You know, they had, you know, the baseball caps on, soccer this, you know. And then I took a closer look and realized they all had painted and manicured their fingernails red and pink. Except the one guy, his were black, but the other guys were red and pink, and they were like girl fingernails. They were nicely manicured, nice polish on them. And I'm looking, and their mom's standing there talking to them about something, and these kids are 16 years old, and I'm thinking, okay, she's good with that, you know, she's good with that, and I'm thinking if it was my wife, because I know she would do that, or if it was my mother, she'd be like, get that shit off your fingernails, right? And freaking man up, you know, and your fingernails should look like mine. See, I don't have any. Those are working hands, man, right? And so, you know, but I'm looking at this going, and she's good with that. If I was a mother, I'd be like, boy, if I wanted a girl, I'd keep having babies till I got one, or I'd adopt one. But you know what? I got a boy, be a man. That's what I would have told her, you know, and as a father, that's definitely what I told her. But since the mom was standing there, you would think she would be a little bit more like, hey, you know what, son, kind of embarrassing me, you know,
Yeah.
you're not a
Yeah.
girl, be a man, you know. But there was none of that. And I was talking to another friend of mine. She's a Russian girl, a little bit younger. And she's like, you know, that's kind of the thing now, you know, because like in Russia, she was telling me there's a couple pop stars, you know, you guys are like 18, 19, 20, and they do that, right? Their fingernails are all painted. So everybody else go, oh, that's cool. They're doing it, so I got to do it, right? So, you know, it's in vogue. Everybody paint your fingernails, right? And, and, and I get it, but I'm not good with it, right? So there's a limit. And so this says a lot about, to me, again, because I'm always looking at this, you know, from a different perspective. I'm looking at it from like this social construct, you know, outsider perspective looking in. And what I'm seeing is, okay, nobody's taught these kids, you know, to be themselves. Nobody's taught these kids to think independently. Nobody's taught these kids what it means to be, you know, to be masculine. And it's not a bad thing to be masculine. I'm sick and tired of people telling me that I'm toxic male, toxic masculine, you know, and you know, all that crap. I'm glad that I'm that, right? Because you need me. You need guys like this. You
Mhm.
need guys like me, right? You don't need these kids with these fingernail polish on, right? They're not winning wars for you. They're not going to save your ass. And if you think, well, if there wasn't any wars, we wouldn't need that. Well, here's a news flash. Since the since the beginning of mankind, we've had over 12,000 wars. Do you think it's ever going to end? Hell no, right? We are the warring ape, you know. We are the warring ape. I mean, Gustav Lebrun, he's a social scientist. He said it himself, man. We're gonna, as long as there's three things, man, to be had: money, power, pussy.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the three things that drive us, man. And they're all interchangeable, right? At the end of the day, why do you want power? I want money. I want things. I want pussy. I want women. Why do you want money? Because I can get power. I get pussy. It all adds up, man. It always, and I say pussy, right? I mean that in a way like procreation, right?
Yes.
The ability to recreate yourselves, right? That's what it always comes down to. And it is a form of racism. Okay. It is. Ethnocentrism, what do you call it? Ethnocentrism.
Mhm.
But essentially, that's why we have these societies, especially in this part of the world, where you could label everybody as Asians, but the Asians will tell you, "Hey, I ain't Chinese. I'm Indonesian. I ain't Indonesian. I'm Filipino. I'm not Filipino. I'm freaking Singaporean." Right? They're very clear about the distinction, and they don't see themselves as the same family. They are very separate and distinct, and that's the reality. That's just being honest. That's being truthful. But yeah, it's strange place we live in. So then later on, right? Well, so the funny story gets even funnier, right? So then later on, we meet this couple, the Canadian couple, and they've got a boy that's 15, which was really cool. He's all in the special forces. Actually, he was all in the SEALs, and I talked him out of that. Now he's all in the special forces, right? It was funny, right? Because my partner was telling him about me, and I show up, and he's in the pool with his dad. He can't wait to talk to me, and Dale is, he says he wants to go into special forces. He said he wants to be a SEAL. And I go, what? And then, we had the conversation about the SEALs, right? And I enlightened him. All right. And anyway, so now he wants to be a Green Beret and ultimately a Delta Force operator. There you go. You got it, boy. But we're sitting there, and then he had a daughter or sister who was 19 years old, and she was over there talking to these kids who are 16 years old, right? And the mom was complaining. She's like, we got to go eat. Go get your sister. And he went to go get his sister, and she didn't want nothing to do with him because she's talking to the boys, and she's embarrassed. And I look, I go, are those the guys with the painted fingernails again? And she goes, yeah. I said, you need to get your daughter out of there, right? So we had this little conversation. We go, what do you mean your fingernails are painted, right? So it kind of caused a little commotion. But so that kind of, that wore itself into the evening, and then went on from there. But yeah, man, we live in a different time, different place, different world, and I think there's a paradigm shift. The East is becoming the West is becoming the East, and it's not a good thing. At the end of the day, if anybody thinks that everybody want to live in one world under one world government and saying kumbaya, you're full of shit. If you're an American that thinks that, you need to get your head out your ass, man. Get out of the country. Get out. I lived in over 90 countries, and I can tell you the rest of the world don't want to be our friends. They don't want to live in harmony with us. I'm telling you that right now, because they all care about their tribe. That's what it comes down to. You want to call us racist in America? Man, we're the last racist people on this planet. Try coming to some of these other countries. And I'm going to tell you right now, go to Hong Kong, go to China, see how that works out for you. Even though it's a white guy, it don't work out that well for you. But if you're black, you're really dumb. You're really done. You get no slack. I've been getting discriminated against all the time just for being white. This is a different world we're living in, and there's going to be a paradigm shift. And there is no utopia that everybody's hoping for out there. You're a moron if you think that's possible. If you think that there's a future without war, again, you're another idiot. In fact, you're getting ready to experience probably the worst war we'll ever, as man, experience, and it's coming. It's coming, and guess what? You guys set it up. You guys prepare the battlefield for them. And I say you, not you, but them. We know who them are, right? So I know I'm making a lot of enemies. I don't care.
I mean, it's what's coming, and yeah, just because we don't talk about it doesn't make it not real. And
It may not come, but I think it will come. Like I said, all the indicators are there, man. The talk is there, the chatter's there. People that don't know anything about warfare are talking about it. People that on a day-to-day basis have no interest in anything other than their job and making money are paying attention. They're paying attention, man. And they hear the war drums. And I can tell you from personal experience with people in other countries that have come in and asked me for some things, that this is bigger than just Joe Public worrying about it. This is at another level, at the state level. People are going, oh shit,
mm,
it's coming, man, it's coming. And we allowed it. We allowed it. We allowed it with all the bullshit shenanigans. We all this stuff is, we allowed it. This COVID thing, as long as we keep playing this COVID game, we're allowing it, man. We're making a production out of something that's less deadlier than the cold virus now. All right, really. And as long as we're doing that, it's like a smokescreen for the bad guys. Like, yeah, let them keep dealing with that while we're doing this over here. It's getting set up. Tell you, man, we live in a society of idiots, dumb masses. I like to use that word because the Romans used it. The dumb masses. Feed the dumb masses bread and circus, man. Keep them preoccupied, and the Senate can do whatever they want. And ultimately, what happened? Rome collapsed. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Yeah.
oh, always a cheery talk with Dale.
No, like I
World's
always
going to
say,
hell.
yeah,
Thermonuclear. Hey, you know what? I look at it as like, whatever happens, happens, and I'm gonna make the most of today.
yeah, man. So I was telling my friend, "Hey, what are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?" I say, "I'll tell you what. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna stay here because I know when the military gets here, they're gonna need sources, right? And I'm gonna be a source, right? I'm gonna be a war chief, man.
Mhm.
I
I'm gonna
ain't leaving.
I'm gonna come over there to Bali, and I'm gonna be your minister of propaganda. I
There
will
you go.
join the Indonesian government. I will. They can take all the revenue from this podcast, and I will use my sources that I've built through this podcast, and I'll be your right hand man, and yeah, I will help wage a subtropical jungle warfare against the Chi Coms in 2030. And you know what? I couldn't die a happier way.
Yeah. Now we are going to get reported to the FBI, CIA, NSA.
Dale, if
Uh,
if you think this is the episode that put it over, I got a bridge to sell you because I think
and
they've been following this podcast.
plotted to overthrow the world.
I've done that. I do that twice a week, Dale. I had on a guy from the Secret Service, the bomb squad, telling my listeners how to build bombs with Home Depot supplies. I mean, if yeah, there's no list I'm not on right now, so I've just kind of accepted it. And
Well,
for all those three letter agencies listening, I will happily work for you guys as well. Just give me some money and give me a card to go visit Dale, and you guys can work with us too as we set up our Dale will be the war chief, and yeah, I that's how I hope to die. Mid 2030s on an island with Dale and Sorry, and being the minister of propaganda with an army of canines fighting the CCP Navy. Yeah, yeah, that's how I intend on going.
we'll see how that works out. Um, yeah. Anyways, I'll be back stateside here soon for a little while. Got some business to take care. As you know, we're going to be doing some events together, and I'm looking forward to that and the filming, and it should be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a fucking blast.
Kind of decompress a little bit in Florida in my home there with my younger daughter, and then we'll come back here. Hopefully, by the time we come back, everything's opened up. The travel ban's relieved, been relieved, and keep back to some level of normalcy. Which already today, I got a message from American Airlines saying, "Oh, you come to Japan, now you have to be tested for this new N1117 A plus 2 plus 2
It's
plus
never going away.
virus," right? Like
It's
what?
never going
So now they got another super high speed virus variant that you got to be tested for. And I'm like, where am I going to get that test at? Because I'm pretty sure they don't test for that yet here because this is a new virus, right? And doesn't require kind of like a different test. But I have to have all that done this week before I get on my airplane next week. So don't be surprised if I don't make it back because of this, and I'm in quarantine for 14 days in Tokyo.
Well, then fuck it. We'll be doing podcasts from Tokyo. God damn it.
Yeah, never ends. All right, man. Well,
All
coolio.
right, all right, Dale. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck in your state sanctioned blackout. I hope the roaming patrols don't come take you down.
Oh, that's in my hotel room. I'm good, man. I ain't going over. I'm going to bed.
Jesus. All right, my man. Well, until next time, Dale, as always, American Badass will be in the description. Sticking to the Top Gun. It's a fantastic book. Buy it, you cheap fucks. It's fantastic. And till next time, Dale, I'll see you, brother.
Brother, be good.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye bye.